Welcome to another live stream, my friends. What fantastic volatility we have had recently. From big downside moves to a beautiful bounce so far. The markets have been volatile as hell. However, the price action has actually been quite clean and predictable. As a trader, I don't care which way the volatility is, as long as it is volatile. But the fact that the levels I would expect reactions from are in fact being well respected is just absolutely beautiful, you guys. For those of you being blindsided by these market moves, you need to get into my Telegram, as we have been all over this trend. From patiently riding my shorts down from last week to catching yesterday's bounce at the perfect lows without attempting to catch the knife and losing multiple trades first, which I even mentioned live with you guys on stream yesterday, why I was taking a little bit of a long and was even more specific with that long setup in my Telegram, you guys. So for those of you who are interested in learning and seeing more examples of my personal trade strategies, some of my trade setup ideas, how I use Fibonacci's and market structure, you just want more of my thoughts on the market in general, do yourselves a favor, scan that QR code on the screen, get in there. Like I said, you guys, all over this downtrend, I was warning about resistance, even that it would likely take a while to play out. And from there, just mentioning how the trend was still looking disgusting, even caught a continuation short there, shared that with you guys, trading at resistance there. And then, as I mentioned yesterday, you guys, we were trading in my macro support zone, my bit of a swing fail zone, and we did have a lower time frame Stuber show up, got into another trade there, or more so added to mine and brought the average entry down just very slightly, barely at all. But yeah, and locking some profits in along the way earlier today. Aster is another one that I had mentioned in the Telegram channel. I mentioned that we were trading at support. Honestly, kind of forgot that I even set that order, but absolutely nailed that trade. Still have most of that position running at this time. A lot of happy people in the Telegram, you guys, people making serious gains and just people catching some nice little tips and tricks that are helping their trading. And guys, my partners at BloFin just did start this new promotion for you guys. Bit of a deposit bonus if you want some futures bonus to trade with. Do yourselves a favor. And like I said, getting access to that, scanning the QR code, getting signed up under me on BloFin does also give you that access to my Telegram channel. So those of you who are interested there, do yourselves a favor, like I said, and scan the QR code on the screen. So with that being said, guys, what can we expect next for Bitcoin here? Like I said, I mean, we had this beautiful little Stuber down here. I was not bullish. I want to be clear about this, guys. As far as the long-term trend goes, I am actually quite bearish on the trend. However, the trend doesn't just move in one direction, right? When we start breaking structure levels, that's where I like looking for those retests. That's why I had this Stuber fib pulled. And yeah, playing out beautifully so far. Mostly, I think the fact that, not only was it a 5-minute Stuber, but also the fact that it lined up with this swing fail. We basically came down to my 115 and then ended up finding that retest on the 5 minutes. So absolutely beautiful. But guys, I don't think the bulls are completely in the clear yet. I still, even if we get a nice bounce here, you guys, this is still a bearish trend. This is not a personal bias. This is just a fact that we are setting lower lows. I talked yesterday about the fact that we lost this level here. It was a big deal. Even if it was just a wick there, it was still losing a level that was the lowest point between our high and our higher high on the macro trend. So losing that higher low was devastating to the trend. And the fact that now we have set another lower low, you guys, I mean, this is a downtrend. That's all there is to it. I wish I had better news for you. But even if we get a bounce, and don't get me wrong, if we bounce up to these levels and retest our resistance of the actual trend, a lot of people like to zoom in too far, don't really understand structure as well as they think they do. But a lot of people will be FOMOing bullish as we trade into resistance. We always see retail traders love to long right into resistance. That's where FOMO kicks in. It's a bull trap. That's what I love about these trade setups and how I pull my fibs, because it's not so much just the fact that it would be up retesting a resistance level. It's the fact that it's resistance after setting a new lower low. It's just a retest. It's very natural to end up losing a low like this and then get some sort of a bounce, set your lower high, and then continue on with the trend. So I don't want to say that bulls are in the clear, but yeah, so far that long position is playing out absolutely fantastic. As well, you guys, on the weekly chart, I was very vocal about this yesterday. I still think this is the most disgusting thing I've seen in this chart for well over a year. The fact that we lost this order block, I've been talking about that for about a month at this point. We turned that order block from support into resistance for the last 3 weeks. And then we actually ended up using that resistance to push us through not only horizontal support of our weekly range, but also this diagonal support, which goes back to early August of last year, not this recent August, but last year. So almost a year and a half long trend line here. And I know not everyone loves diagonal trend lines, but guys, this is such an accurate one. They are just pinpoint accurate. And that's a big thing for me when I do trade breakouts. Normally, I'm not a breakout trader. I like looking for those pullbacks, those retracements, just like I was talking about on the 4-hour. But when I do trade breakouts, they need at least 3 exact touch points on a trend line. And this right here would have been our third. We even got a 4th there. So big concerns about this weekly chart. That being said, typically speaking, if we lose an important support level, we end up retesting it as resistance, right? So at this point, it could even take a while, right? We could do something like this and then come back up and retest that and then carry on our downtrend. But just understand that since we lost this very serious support trend line, both horizontal and diagonal, and losing our order block, there's a lot of things on the weekly chart that give me some great concerns right now. Not only that, we still have this bearish divergence on the weekly RSI. On its own, it's not a perfect divergence that I like to trade on its own. But to see that we are basically trading sideways in a large range, and the strength, the relative strength index, is actually trending to the downside. So we have less strength as we're trading sideways. So now we just see that, well, obviously with less strength, why would we end up being able to punch through that resistance? So, there's just a lot of red flags right now. So it is what it is. Bringing up some indicators just for a little bit of confluence. The trend master indicator, you guys know I've been talking about this one quite a bit recently. The fact that we ended up printing this lower sell signal, and we see this not only on Bitcoin, but on so many altcoins recently. We have something very similar, and I'm going to go into that in a second as well. But just showing that, and also the buy signal, right? We have lower trending buy signal followed by a lower trending sell signal. So even if we do end up reclaiming this line here, getting a buy signal, it will most likely be a lower buy signal. And that's where we would have to consider the possibility that we still have a downtrend, and, the buy signal's fighting against the trend. So even that's if we even get back up to these levels, you guys. Obviously, we have indicator resistance along the way. This resistance basically from about 106 to 106.8K. Some serious resistance there just off the MDX Trend Master indicator. Now, something that did catch my eye this morning that has been updated, and an indicator that you guys know I've been talking about quite a lot recently, is the MDX liquidations indicator. I was saying that the whole time we were trading in this whole range here, I was mentioning that, no matter how you look at it, we are trading in the middle of a very large range. And we had liquidity all the way up towards all-time highs, but we also had a whole bunch of liquidations to the downside. And it may be the market makers may want to go down and grab that before getting some relief in the market. And just look at that, guys. This is all that liquidity that I've been pointing out for over a week now. Well, basically a couple of weeks. And we basically came down yesterday and grabbed all that. And when there's no liquidity left, or very little, right? We have a couple little spots, but really not all that much liquidity to the downside anymore. Then we start to see that relief. And at this point, I mean, we are seeing that there is, most of the liquidity at this point is to the upside. I must have been on a different chart earlier, because I know there was a ton more liquidity to the upside of these lower leverage ones as well. So that must have, maybe that was on the BloFin chart, or this is the BloFin chart. I'm not sure where that would have been. Maybe that was on the Bitstamp chart. Let's check the 4. No, I don't even have that indicator up. So something must have changed. Either way, at this point, no matter how you look at it, there is more liquidity pockets to the upside than the downside at this point. That can obviously change. Even the fact that we have this liquidation level down here, we never had that last time I checked. So we are already starting to see retail trying to long a little bit, that we're getting those liquidation levels. But I mean, let's look at things, guys. This, speaking of the long short, looking for liquidations, and as people start to long, we get that liquidity to the downside. Something that caught my eye today, and something that I've been talking about a lot recently, is this retail long short ratio. And just notice that now, as we're climbing, as well, first of all, I mean, we saw retail longs climbing, right? The whole time that retail is willing to get wrecked and willing to be that exit liquidity for market makers. The whole time that retail is trying to long, that's just fuel to the fire and continues pushing the price to the downside. But now, after we actually hit those support levels, the support levels that I've been talking about, the support level that I ended up longing, closing my shorts and opening longs, you see that retail traders are generally doing the opposite. As we traded down into support, look down here, that's where shorts started to climb. So most people, most retail traders, like I was talking about before with FOMO kicking in, if we get up to resistance here, that we're going to see retail start getting FOMO and starting to long here. Sorry, I got babysitting a dog here and it won't shut up right now. But as I was talking about retail wanting to long into resistance, very much so the same on the opposite side of things, right? As we traded into support, we saw retail starting to finally trying to short this market. They were totally okay longing into resistance. And as we trade into support, we just see those shorts starting to build up. So as long as retail is trying to short this trend, we could see the price continue to climb. And that's where I would start to expect some of these higher targets. The Stuber fib of the current 4-hour trend is up around 112.5 thousand US dollars, is the start of it, and basically runs up to 119,000 would be invalidation of that. Unfortunately, the thing with that is, you guys, if we end up breaking that, the immediate downtrend on the 4-hour, we just have the macro resistance on the 4-hour above that, right? As soon as we invalidate the smaller fib pull, we start getting into the bigger fib pull. So no matter how you look at it right now, so many people saying that we're about to go parabolic and this is the final shakeout and all that sort of stuff. There's just nothing on the charts that's actually lining up with that for me right now. I would love to see it. You know what? I ended up taking this long. I'm positioned for it if it happens, but I just really don't see it happening. I just think that there's so much resistance ahead, and the fact that we've been setting lower lows on a macro time frame now, that's very serious market structure to me, and I have very serious concerns about that. I want to take a look at Aster as well, because as I mentioned, I ended up taking a bit of a long on that, just basically not only being at my swing fail zone, right? I mean, the other day we ended up having this little pump on Aster. I shouldn't say little, it pumped about 40% in an hour or two. But we ended up retracing that whole move. That doesn't necessarily mean we're bearish. It's just that typical situation where when we end up breaking resistance, we end up getting a retrace and retesting support. So we had diagonal support. We had my swing fail zone support, a couple things lining up. So that's why I took my bit of a long on Aster there. Basically, if we end up losing the micro trend on the 4-hour, I'm going to lock in my profits and call it good. Because I don't want to round trip this one. It was just a beautiful entry. And basically, as long as we're setting higher highs, and I know this is micro analyzing, you guys, but ever since, like, even just going from this downtrend, where did we end up breaking this downtrend? Well, basically right here. Even if you wanted to call it right here, either way, we ended up breaking that little immediate downtrend. And now we have new highs and higher lows, right? So we got a higher high. That would have been our higher low there. Now another higher high and a higher low. So that's why I have my yellow line here. And as long as we stay above that, I'm going to hold on to this position. And I'm just going to basically do a manual trailing stop loss, that as we see new structure form, I'm going to update my stop loss just so I can lock in some profits if it happens. But I want to let the runners run. So if it continues running, so be it. You'll notice that I also have this little scalp sized fib pull right here. My reasoning for this, so this is also another scalp that I've just taken just about an hour ago or so. But my reasoning for this fib, you guys, is I know it probably looks like it's a random fib pull being it's down from this level, but I want to zoom out to the 1 hour. And just like I was just talking about with Aster on the 4 hour, it's very similar structure, right? Just for the immediate trend, as long as we're holding this, I don't really want to bet against it with new shorts at this point, just because this would have been our last little microstructure on the uptrend. Would be here we have our high, and we did go a little bit higher. The lowest point between the two is right here, therefore my yellow line. We did get a little wick below it, but we are still holding my 115. We never dropped below that. So far, that microstructure on the 1 hour is still holding, and I don't really want to bet against it until we lose that kind of structure. If we end up doing something like this and the price ends up dumping, we lose those lows, then I would be interested in looking for a new short on some sort of a retest, something like that. So notice I'm not exactly trying to guess a new top on this, although don't get me wrong, there's potential resistance back here. But I want to see some sort of a new setup form if I'm going to take a new short on this kind of a trend. So basically, if we lose that higher low structure, even on the immediate time frame there, that's where I would be looking for some sort of a Fibonacci retracement, just like what I was talking about on the 4 hour, just like that I talk about all the time, right? It's very natural to break a level. And realistically, this is where retail traders would mostly start shorting. They would think, hey, we lost support, time to start shorting. And then they backtrack on their thoughts and they get suckered into a bit of a bull trap as you end up trading towards resistance. But in reality, this is more so the signal that, hey, it's time to start looking for shorts, but that doesn't mean necessarily short right now. And that's a problem that a lot of traders have, is they have that FOMO and they want to be in a position right now. But that's the type of thing where if we do lose that structure, I would look for some sort of a retest of resistance. Like I said, just like I'm looking at on the 4 hour with Bitcoin, the fact that we lost these lows here and retail starts shorting aggressively into that breakout, hoping for a breakout, and then we just end up reclaiming that level and getting some sort of a bounce. It doesn't mean that they were wrong, right? If people think that this was a bearish sign because we closed below this level back here, they're absolutely right. That is a bearish sign. However, to sweep those levels and then end up getting that retrace, very natural, you guys. And that's the kind of market structure that goes so far, you guys. A very good understanding. I know I was talking about this yesterday, but I think it's so important, you guys, that above anything else in the game of trading, in my opinion, having a strong understanding of literally the most basic technical analysis and the most basic market structure, simply lower lows and lower highs and higher lows. That is the most important part when it comes to trading, but it's something that gets overlooked. And as soon as people start trading, they start to overcomplicate things and, steer away from mastering the basics and getting your foundation, getting your footing for your trading strategies. Because as far as I'm concerned, at least in my opinion, it always comes down to, for any trade strategy I have, market structure first. From there, I start looking for confluences, whereas a lot of people have that backwards, whereas they look for those confluences that they want to see, whereas I would rather trade the chart that's actually there rather than the chart that I hope shows up, basically. So what else can we look at? Ethereum, guys. I know I was mentioning this yesterday. We're still printing those lower sell signals. So yeah, we do still, even on this immediate trend on the 4 hour, notice I have this yellow line here. This would be my lower high on the trend, just because here would have been a little low, right? Because we got a little bounce there and we set a lower low. That would confirm this as my lower high on the immediate 4 hour trend. Obviously, as far as the actual trend, this was our low. This is our lower low. That means our highest point between the two would be our lower high, right about there. That would be the main resistance of this trend at this point. But as far as the immediate resistance goes, yeah, we have some right around here. And actually, the MDX Trend Master is showing resistance overlapping that same structural level there. So a lot of work for the bulls to do. Solana, very much the same thing. We're getting a bounce out of that Stuber fib pocket so far. there is a lot of resistance along the way. I really do think that we'll see some sort of a bounce, especially if Bitcoin keeps climbing. Like I said, if retail continues to short and starts building those shorts, then I think the market's going to climb, and that would include altcoins. But we're going to have to see what happens. Yeah, like I said, still really looks like retail shorts are stepping in. The longs are starting to pump the brakes a little bit. So yeah, that's recipe for potentially going to higher prices, right? Let's just go back to my 5 minute. Oh, I actually hit my first target. But yeah, just pulling a bullish fib from there because it is my 1 hour level. Notice we have just hit the 0.5 fib on something like that. So not saying this trade strategy works every single time, but it's crazy how often those levels get respected. And recently, I know so many people are getting blindsided by this market, and this volatility is making a lot of people literally sick. I mean, people's emotions are on high. You can tell that people are getting upset and angry, and I totally get it. It's frustrating losing money, but when you actually just look at basic market structure, this has been performing so well, you guys. As long as, I know that's a misunderstanding for a lot of people, because when I say it's performing well, I just mean that it's clean market structure, and I don't have a bias. I don't care if we're going to the upside or the downside when it comes to trading. I treat my spot bags very differently. Obviously, investing is one thing, trading is very different. Yeah, my investments are taking a shit kicking on this downward trend that we had. However, my trading account was absolutely loving it because I'm just trading it for what it is. I'm dollar cost averaging some spot buys on the way with some of those profits from the shorts. Basically, I feel like I'm covering all my bases. If we go to all-time highs and we go parabolic, I'm going to be so excited, and I would have bigger bags of spot holdings on meme coins, altcoins, Bitcoin, etc. I will have more than I did a couple of weeks ago if we end up climbing to new all-time highs. Whereas if we continue to plummet, I'm just going to plan to trade the downside, keep trading the trend, and keep dollar cost averaging on the way down and profiting on my trade account on the way down. That's kind of how I'm looking at covering myself right now. So let me know in the chat how you guys are all feeling. Do you think the bull market's over? Do you think it's straight bear market time? Do you think we're going to all-time highs right away? Hopefully you are all, I know I said this yesterday and the day before, but I hope you guys are not only surviving, but also thriving in these markets. Those of you guys who have been in these live streams, I mean, we have been all over this trend, you guys. I know I'm saying a lot of things that a lot of people don't want to hear, but unfortunately, this market needs a voice of reason. And I'm very good at keeping a level head. I don't let my emotions get out of control, because that's the thing with having a systematic trade setup, you guys, is it takes the guesswork out, right? I've done my back testing. I know the trade strategy I want. When I pull a fib like this, I have my entries, my invalidations, and my take profits already mapped out for me. It takes all that, all those gut feelings out of it. And I know that even if I lose a trade, it is going to be a controlled loss, because every trader loses trades. But if you're super emotional about a loss you take, then you're trading with too much money. You're trading with too high of leverage. You don't have a proper strategy where you have, something systematic you can repeat over and over. Because with the game of trading, you guys, you need something systematic. You need to be able to trade the same setup repeatedly, because if you're trading on gut feelings, I mean, those are going to be all over the place. They are for me, I have those emotions just like anyone else. But with proper back testing and a proper strategy, I can at least keep those emotions at bay. So I hope you guys are absolutely crushing it, my friends. Gravy train telegram that's a lot of zeros and one. Let's just call it a 1,000,000,000% fantastic. Thank you so much. I love to hear that, gravy train. Hurley, great to see you in here, my friend. J-Rock, appreciate it as always. Stu, thoughts on Zcash? Thank you for being here for one, and I will take a look at Zcash real quickly. I think it's still just in a very strong uptrend. Yeah, I can't really I've taken a few scalps short on this guy on a few different structure breaks. Even something I can't remember where it was. I don't even think I played this one. But I have traded a couple of shorts on this, but at this point, I'm not interested anymore, because When it did break some structure back here, this was the last one that I traded here, was when we broke this structure, right? That microstructure like this. We lost that. We got our super fib pullback. We hit the first and second profits, and then we ended up taking off to the upside again. So I've taken a couple scalps on it, but nothing's really stuck as a runner, and this thing is still just trending. So at this point on the 4 hour, I mean, for one, we still have this beautiful buy trend, this purple line below the price, or pink, whatever color. But on top of the indicator, we also have just structure. We have a high and a higher high that confirms this as our higher low. So at this point, even if we get a significant pullback, I would be more so looking for long opportunities if we drop back down closer to 400 US dollars. So that's kind of what I'd be looking at as far as structure there. What else? Yeah. What is Bitcoin looking like? The 4 hour, like I said, the weekly, honestly, a lot of people like to say when in doubt, zoom out. And unfortunately, the more I zoom out, the more bearish I get. That's basically what this chart comes to. Yeah, I'm totally fine playing the long side of things. I love catching those bounces. I will trade this market either direction because it trades both directions. But yeah, this weekly chart, like I said earlier, that order block turning to resistance, diagonal trend line, lost our horizontal level. There's just so much. Even if I pull a fib from something like this for the weekly trend and the weekly higher low, notice that we have destroyed that 115. So big time invalidated. Unless something happens where we get bought right back up and we close a green candle or something, reclaim this red box, then yeah, absolutely, it's possible that we're going to go higher. But at this point, just I want to put it on your radar that we could bounce significantly at this point and still end up being in some sort of a downtrend. So be careful out there, you guys. Nuno, you sent a ticket in the Discord, but no feedback yet. I will reach out to my producer when I'm done this and see if they can deal with that first thing in the morning. They're a different time zone than me, so might have to wait till tomorrow, but I will mention it again. Sorry, it's taking a while. I'm not sure what's going on, but we will get it sussed out for you. So we'll get that figured. But yeah, guys, I think that's about all I wanted to go over today. So one last time, if you appreciate these live streams, please do me a favor, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel if you have not. And like I said, for those of you interested in learning and seeing more examples of how I look at some of my favorite trade strategies, seeing more examples of some of my trade setups, looking at how I pull Fibonacci's, how I look at market structure, just my overall thoughts on the markets, guys, we have been all over this trend ever since when we got our initial bounce there, called that. Even the highs when we ended up getting that big liquidation event, guys, days in advance, we were ready in short positions there, waiting for that big liquidation event. Didn't know it was going to happen that fast and that violently, but we were absolutely positioned for it just from a chart structure point of view. I had no idea there was going to be tariff announcements or anything like that. So just goes to show how powerful basic market structure can be. So again, if that is something that interests you, do yourselves a favor, scan the QR code on the screen, get in my Telegram. And like I said, my partners at BloFin also currently giving this these deposit bonuses to my followers. So yeah, that would also, getting signed up under me also grants you access into my Telegram channel. So with that, I think that's about all I wanted. So one last time, you guys, if you could do me that favor, hit that like button, subscribe. With that, I'm out. Stay safe, my friends. Thank you so much for being here with me once again. Peace.